Tonight we have as our topic the marketing area, and the specific topic is what makes great brands great. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all here tonight to this wonderful evening, which is the first in our leadership series.
I'll ask the panelists also what their perspective on is what is a brand. I'll give you mine first. So if it's not a logo, and it's not a slogan, and it's not an identity, and it's not a product or service, what exactly is a brand? And I would offer you that a brand is the experience that someone has in your product or service, or even in you. And when you deliver an exceptional experience over and over and over again, what happens? You build a relationship of trust.
A brand essentially is what people say when you're not in the room, right? They say about you when you're not in the room. So that gives probably the most articulate view of what people buy into or believe in terms of what a brand stands for. And effectively, it comes down to the ability to deliver a point of difference that is meaningful to people. And I think a lot of the time when we talk about competition, we think we're competing, but in fact what's happening is that rather than competing, we're getting a lot of convergence and conformity. When you look out there, you go, that's what that logo stands for, and it has meaning, and it has something of real value to you as a consumer. That for me would be what I think a brand is, first and foremost.
A brand, simply put, is a promise delivered. I mean that in the most simplistic manner. The question that has been asked is what then makes a great brand? But I'll probably start off with saying it's mental and physical availability. So that is the first thing that comes to mind when you think about a great brand. And I mean those brands that are repeatedly mentioned are actually global brands. And with it comes the second thing around consistency. You buy into it because you know what has been promised and that you will get it. So the issue of consistency, because everything stuff is done repeatedly over and over again, starts to build you up into being a great brand. Perhaps the third point is having a very clear point of view, and Bernice alluded to it. What is your point of difference? What is your position in the market? What are you actually going to stand for? That's quite important because most brands come up from products, and products can be very similar. So what will be different about you? And the fourth most critical aspect that makes a great brand is knowing who is your consumer. And in today's age, now more than ever, we no longer sell products, we sell brands. What is the purpose of the brand? And we're seeing that repeatedly within Unilever. Brands with purpose is actually what's driving growth, sustainable growth in the business. I can talk about Dove until the cows come home. I can talk about Lifebuoy. Amazing, incredible turnaround because those brands have purpose. So we're speaking to both the mind of the consumer, but most importantly, their heart.
When you say brand is a promise delivered, I think that's a good brand. But the more neutral version of brand I've got is how people think and feel about your product. So back to talking to mind and heart, how people think and feel about your product. Which means if you don't deliver the promise, you're a bad brand. If you deliver the promise, you're a good brand. If you deliver on an amazing promise, you're a great brand. I would say at the heart of what makes a great brand, though, for me, is really the product. Everything else, the advertising, the marketing, none of it really matters if you don't have a product that's a well-defined and differentiated product. You know, the overarching point is innovation, right? And if you think about innovation, every single great brand out there has used innovation to get to where it is today. Walt Disney, we always talk about Walt Disney being this unbelievable brand. How strong do you think it would be today if it wasn't for Star Wars, Frozen, the Avengers? Right? So it's not a case of, well, you know, Walt Disney drew Mickey Mouse and the rest is history. The rest is not history. There's a lot of hard work to actually get these brands sustained, and that's where the innovation comes in. Only one person could be Kim Kardashian. Everyone else needs a product.
So would you just help me and explain me who is Kim Kardashian?
She made a video. She's actually a filmmaker.
How do you get people to listen? How do you get Exco to listen to the clarity that all three of you have expressed?
We always say the business case prevails. So if something's better for the product and better for the client and better for the financials, it becomes almost a no-brainer. So I focus a lot on the sort of logical problem solving to get to what's the right answer. And I'd love to hear your experience, because on marketing it's a bit different, because everyone in the organization thinks they're a marketer. And there it requires a bit of intuition and creativity, so that's where the debates happen.
So I think debate time is over. The effort and the energy now has to be vested in finding the purpose that will actually drive sustainable growth.
The purpose is the one thing that potentially enables us to have a point of reference in the marketplace. And so from a banking point of view, having been at FNB, our purpose as a bank was fundamentally to make a difference to people's lives, and it was encompassed in a single word, which was help. So I think what's happening within the realm of purpose is about, giving someone something to buy, and at the same time giving people something to buy into. Purpose fundamentally is the thing that raises us above the sort of, we're in it for the business of the bottom line. And it's driven by, certainly for us from an SAB point of view, across three buckets. It's the bucket of top line growth, our bucket around having assurances, I suppose, that top line growth is profitable and sustainable. And if we didn't have a very strong and guiding purpose, none of those are basically achievable in terms of our ability to deliver in terms of the shareholder value that we're seeking to deliver on a consistent and sustainable basis. The challenge for us is not what is possible, because we could make anything work, and the scope for those opportunities are significant. The challenge for us is what we need to stop doing and do less of. And things that we need to go, this is the runway in terms of our pipeline, potentially, but these are the things that will be significant in changing the landscape. And that's where we find we have the greatest debates. And there's all of these changes coming through, and you don't have a crystal ball. And at some point you do have to make big bets on what you think it is that's going to take you forward, deliver across the buckets of, top line growth, sustainability and profitability, but at the same time make sure that you're continually able to keep your edge. And I think there's now there's a fourth dimension, which is edge. And if you're not edgy enough, if you're not being an insurgent, I think, in consumers' minds, you're not likely to win as you might have won in the past. And I think what sometimes has happened is you tend to look out at the market and you speak about interest or rather attention span in the marketplace, and we're all driven to distraction, right? And what we're learning is it's not so much about attention span but about interest. And if we're unable to captivate and hold people's interest, we're not going to get their attention.
My main challenge is clear messages that consumers get, that's compelling around the product. So how do I have a clear, compelling message around what our products are? I get like home loan SMSs all the time, right? So like personal loans and all sorts of stuff. I hate that stuff, and it's completely not relevant for me. I'm not looking for a home. Whereas if we use data properly, you'd get the right stuff to service you. The people, we would know when we're going. If someone's about to go to hospital, and we could service them better, and similar. So that's that's in general. I love it and we use it well, but we always start with a sense of where's it better for the client.
VUCA is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It also in Zulu means wake up and pay attention. But we live in a VUCA world, and you have to ask yourself, and particularly in light of what our panelists have said, in a VUCA world, how do you make decisions? How do you accelerate decision making? Because I think that's what our panelists are saying in terms of the importance of being nimble
And when there's an emergency and when there's brand damage being done, the last thing you want to do is come across as a corporate. You need a person speaking, you need them speaking authentically at that point in time.
So I couldn't agree more. So it's around reputation management. And when we work with brands and in the environment that we work with, where you no longer just have your trusted channels of communication, anyone and anybody can do anything about your brand. Think about the Cell C and the billboard example. So things will happen when you work with a brand. So you cannot be delusional. The key is, what do you do when something happens? And that's really it. So that's what the shareholders are interested in. That's what the consumers are interested in. In the moment of truth, what action did you take? It's never easy. And sometimes you can work around it very quickly with experts, with the team, with whoever, and turn around the situation very quickly. And sometimes it can actually work to the benefit of the brand in the long term. So the key thing for me is, what do you do when that happens? And very seldom strong brands who have functionally quite strong credentials can actually walk through any crucible.
And if you think about a crisis as an opportunity, why is it an opportunity? It's an opportunity to demonstrate not just what you do, but who you are. And I think at the end of the day, character matters. You have to ask yourself, what are you at risk of losing in a crisis? You're at risk of losing the trust in your brand. You're at risk of losing the trust in your leadership. Great brands, like we have represented tonight, great companies, like we have represented tonight, all have one other element in common. They all have great values. And they use their great values to make decisions. And you make decisions, just like Johnson & Johnson did, based on, not on strategy or, it was based on values. The strategy came out of the values. The values didn't come out of the strategy.